Hello and welcome back to the Health and Harmony Goals podcast. Today we have a special guest on who we're super excited to chat with today. Her name is Thea Khama and she is a consciousness coach and author. I was going to read your bio, but I'm just going to go with it. And she's also the author of Rough Diamond, which is an incredible book that I have had the privilege to read. We're still going to get there, but we are super excited to chat to you today. Thank you so much for giving us the time to have you on our podcast.
I'm really happy to be here. It's exciting.
Amazing. So in the beginning, we always just like our guests to let our audience know who they are. So you can introduce yourself in it whichever way you want to and feel comfortable to.
I love that because, people always say, who are you? And you're so many things. It's hard to answer that. But in this context, I'm coming to you as a healer, as an author, and also, as a coach, as a personal life coach. And that's the context I'm coming to. But I'm also a mother. I have beautiful pets and a pet owner, and I'm a conservationist. I love animals and the nature and the wildlife. And so I've been involved in all those areas, as well as women development, especially along the lines of domestic abuse and what we are calling now gender-based violence today. So yeah, I'm in all those spaces, and I also am married into the royal family in Botswana, the Khamas, and my husband is a parliamentarian in government here.
Incredible. Incredible. So I want to jump a little bit into your book, because obviously that's how the universe has brought us together. I don't know if you want to maybe just explain your book in whichever way you feel would be the perfect way to explain it, so our audience has a better idea of what your book is about, and then we can go, and I've got a lot of questions I want to ask you from reading the book, but obviously we're going to go along with the flow and see what comes up as we go.
Well, the book title is Rough Diamond, the story of my adoption, adventures in the African bush, and spirit guiding me home. So basically, it's a memoir of my early years from in the womb. Actually, I start there, going up to my early 20s, and I really lived a full life in that time, traveling all over Africa with my adoptive parents, going through a lot of challenges in life that I think a lot of readers may have gone through themselves. Abuses, different kinds of abuses, and neglect is a big theme in the book, and how I overcame that in each moment. And so, so that's really what the message is to as a hope and overcoming and the light, and how we can transcend some of the deepest pains and woundings.
I love that. I think for me, like, there are so many questions that I want to ask you after reading your book, but the one thing, and it's going to sound so silly, but the one thing that I thought from like page 1, and I wanted to find out from you, is how do you remember so much of your life? Because I'm like, I don't remember anything until I was probably like 18 years old, and your book is literally that whole period before that. So, I mean, I don't know if you have some crazy special memory, but I just wanted to be having the privilege to be able to ask the author of a book that I've read, how did you remember a lot of the stuff that you wrote about?
A lot of it was doing visioning and doing healing work throughout my life, and being able to go back through hypnosis or go back to those memories, as well as I do have an elephant's memory, what I call an elephant's memory. So it's just there. I do remember a lot. I think my mother talked to me a lot about my life and growing up, and I would talk to a lot of older people, elders, if you will, and people in my community who would sort of help me through my challenges. And I think talking about my life over and over and getting through all the different issues and challenges and pain that I was experiencing as a child, it helped me so much to actually go back and remember And then, yes, I also did research and from various people who are in part of the book, and asked them, did this really happen? Did you remember it this way? And that helped me to piece things together.
Amazing. I think that's incredible because, I mean, me and my sister always have so many fights. We have memories of like similar things, but completely different memories. And we both like, you don't remember it right. And I'm like, you don't remember it right. So it's amazing that you had a community of people that you could go back to and ask. And that obviously like doing the hypnosis and stuff like that was also a way to do it. That's super interesting. I love that.
And like rebirthing work. So there's a rebirthing work that's done through the breath and through somebody guiding you in visualization back to those times. And so I was fortunate to be able to do that in my teens.
I would love you to dive a little bit deeper into that if you wouldn't mind, because I mean that obviously we love the woo-woo like spiritual side of things. So we love to learn new techniques and new tools. So if you can just take us on a little journey of how this, you said it was breath work, rebirthing through breath work. How exactly was that experience and how did it work?
Well, I was in a group. It was a workshop. I think I was about 18 when I did that work. And the practitioner took us into breathing exercises, lying on our backs, covered up, all cozy. And so we were really comfortable. And then gently led us back into the womb through her words. And I went there, and it wasn't a gentle experience. It was a shock. And I didn't know anything about that, about my life at that time. I hadn't found my adoptive parents yet, and I was looking for them. So I really didn't know anything. And the experience later was validated by my adoptive mother, who I did finally meet, and she explained what happened. And I then had that experience also in the womb, because I had no context for what was going on when I was in the rebirthing experience, but I felt everything and I saw certain things. I imagined certain things, and I guess I didn't really imagine them because they were validated. It was very real. So I think that we have cellular memories, and I think, well, I know we do. It's scientifically proven we have cellular memory, and I've been a massage therapist for 30 years, and I've seen clients, have memories of, for example, if they were hit by a car and it's still in their bodies. That experience is still in our bodies. So I think once we process it, we go through it, and that's what the rebirthing is about, is going back to the womb, processing your initial feelings and impressions as a baby in the womb. Some of us have had trauma. Some of us have had a wonderful experience there. And it's just processing that is really a good thing, a very healing thing for us to do. So I loved the experience, even though it was kind of, for me, it was a traumatic, the trauma in the womb was definitely there. But then she processed us out of it, so we could come out and be ourselves again in the world. But I always then had this question in my mind, what was that all about? Until I did find out.
That's incredible.
As far back as rebirthing, like from the womb, it's just like blowing my mind. I mean, I know so many different things that people do to work through traumas, but like going back into the womb, I think is something that's probably really overlooked, because coming into the world, it can be, like you say, really positive, or some people can have really traumatic experiences. And to not know what had happened in order to like move on from it is really difficult. So my mind is literally like blown. Yeah. I can't. It's crazy. The fact you go back. I mean, I've just had my baby, so I know, like, as a mother, what that experience was like for me.
Yes.
So just like begin to imagine how crazy the experience was for her, and how much trauma and things that she must be holding on to or will hold on to for the future. You've just given me that bit of insight to be able to like relay that information to your child, which I think is also super important, that if they want to delve into that at some point in their life. Like, it's not a bad idea.
It's true. I have developed a better relationship with my son through this actual process and through telling him what was going on while he was in my womb. And yeah, that discussion actually opened a huge space for us to have more communion and a better relationship. At some point, we needed that when he was around 15. I think I talked to him about it and explained to him the impressions, and he actually, resonated with that and connected to it. And ever since then, we've been like so tight. It's just been the most amazing.
That's incredible. I love that you brought that up, because I think so many people don't realize how much our body holds on to the trauma that we've been through, and without actually going through it and processing and letting it go, that trauma will just stay pent up in your body forever, literally. Because I think also trauma can be passed down through 7 generations. So not only are you not healing yourself, but you're passing it on to your kids and their kids and their kids. So yeah. I love that you're opening.
Yeah.
You carry on.
I think that's how that's what we all carry with us, and most of us are trying to better the experience for our children, right? And we're trying to better our experience and break old habits of family habits or traditions, or we're trying to make it better all the time, and either our own lives or the lives of others, our children, and break some of the negative, if you will, aspects of generational stuff that we go through. So yeah, it's rebirthing is a great thing. Look into it. I actually want to look into it now more, because you guys have brought it up. I haven't been doing it for anyone, but I think, hey, that might be something to do now with my clients.
Definitely. I love that. So let's dive a little bit deeper into so your book has like a really strong underlying theme of spirituality, which I absolutely love. Like, obviously that's my vibe. So I really resonated with that throughout the book. But I'd just like to hear from you, like how you first, because I know you had, during the book, you had guides and almost like this deeper knowing that you were being protected. When did that first occur to you, and how did you, not necessarily how did you, but did you like take that in with open arms? Did you have any resistance to it? And if not, like how did that progress over your lifetime?
It's a good question. I was just thinking back as you were saying that. Well, I think, yeah, I had this imaginary friend, Shine, who I called Shine, who came, who was very angelic. And she was there with me during the time my parents actually divorced when I was 4.5, 5. And it was a tumultuous time. I speak about that in the book and how I was going through that. The book is in first person, present tense. So when you're there with my inner child, you're there with me the whole way. I had changed that. Originally it was, third person, and I was talking about it. And then I had to go back and change everything, because I wanted you to really be with me in the moment, and for me to be there when I'm writing as well. So it's really, I'm trying to be as authentic as possible, but giving the child words, giving it language, because I couldn't speak it at the time, but I certainly felt all the things that are there. Yeah, so when Shine came in, I embraced that fully and that experience, and I have never forgotten it. And she eventually went out. She was like a little guide. And then later, I leaned into that when I was in my about 7, 8, and I was going through other things. And I needed that. I needed a friend. I needed something, but she wasn't there anymore. So I would, I have this great imagination. I think you're born a creative or not, maybe, and some people may not be born with that, but they develop it in their life later. For me, it was there from the beginning. So I was very imaginative. I was also an only child, so I stayed alone a lot, and I had imaginary friends. And I think then later when I was, 10, 11, I had an experience of crossing over, and that led me to truth. That was the final anchoring point, if you will, that, that anchored my spirituality from then on, that experience.
I remember that in the book. And then obviously, like, the book goes up to like your early 20s, and I want to know, obviously, because I don't get to read the rest of your life now, how has your spirituality developed since then? And like, what processes have you taken on to build on that, or tools, like, you let us know? I'm just interested to see how it's progressed since the time in the book.
Yeah. Well, for me, my spirituality, I would say, is all inclusive. It includes every religion in the world, and every, and I think I'm very good at walking into any sacred space, churches, or, synagogues, or Sikhs, temples, and being very comfortable and being very welcomed by everyone in those spaces. And I think it's because they can relate somehow. And I also developed a gift that I had, which was healing hands. I was given that gift, I believe, from the time when I crossed over. So yeah, I developed that, and just doing massage therapy and healing others really helped me to connect to the healing aspects of spirit, and how that can come through us into somebody else, and that how my will and my focus when I'm doing the healing, or when I'm coaching somebody, for example, if I'm very present and very centered, then the healing comes through. And so I think it just was kind of a natural progression for me. I didn't seek out any one way. However, I have, I've read a lot of books, and I've taken some of the tools from those teachers, and of course watching podcasts and watching others, speak. I love Muji. I love Muji's way. I love, Eckhart Tolle, and there's a few, but I think for me, it's really about my own spirituality and teaching what I have. And so I haven't really anchored to one particular spiritual guru, if you will. Yeah. I follow my own my own guru inside.
I love that. I think it's so important for us to obviously learn from as many people and things as we can, but to take what we learn and put it into our own way of doing things, because that's what makes us all unique at the end of the day anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, I want to go back to this passing over experience. And I mean, obviously, I don't want you to give away too much of the book, but I feel like this was obviously just in one of the chapters, because you seem to go back to this a lot when it comes to like anchoring your spirituality and also finding this gift of your healing hand. So I don't know if you could like elaborate a little bit more on this experience that you had and how it did anchor you, because I think it'd be super interesting for our listeners to hear the story.
Sure. So basically, my parents were atheists. I had no experience before this experience of any kind of deeper teachings or spirituality. There was a little bit of, Zen Buddhism that they followed or practiced in their life. But other than that, they didn't, push anything on me or train me in anything. So that's why I feel this experience is so authentic for me. I had I took myself into it literally. And when I crossed, I saw my grandfather from my adopted mom's side, and he spoke to me. And the way he spoke to me, it was like time disappeared. Time wasn't like we know it here. It was non-linear, and I could be inside of him I could be at every perspective. And also everything is intertwined. That's the message I really got, is that everything is happening perfectly. It's all in a plan and a design, and every one of us and every blade of grass has a song to sing, and they're all singing, and it's actually harmonized in this, well, in the heavenly realm where I was taken to, or I ended up. Everything is a song. It's all, you know, harmony. And in that, I also felt a greater presence. I felt what we would speak of as God, the divine, the source, universe, all of that. It was there, and it wasn't there it didn't come as a person, one person, although I believe it can come as one person to different people. And I also got a sense that this place was vast. It wasn't just what I was in, a little garden, and it was so beautiful. It was like a little girl's dream garden. But I could sense there were hills and mountains and seas and other places in this realm. So when I came back from this experience, I knew there was God. I just knew there was God, but I didn't have the context at the time to explain it. And so I just grew with it. It was inside of me after that, and no one could tell me otherwise, literally. But I also, because of my upbringing, I have not pushed this on anyone at all. That's been my way. And I've gone into different churches and tried different religions out for myself to say, okay, well, maybe I need a community, maybe I need something. And those worked for a time, and then there was more to explore always.
I think it's so important to realize, like, you have to take, and okay, I don't say you have to, because as you say, different things work for different people. But if you are the way a lot of us are now in this current world, I think it's so important to, like you say, take things from different communities or religions or whatever you want to call it. And people get so strung up on the rules of how something is supposed to work that sometimes if you fall off the wagon, or if you believe a little bit in something else, they feel like they are bad people or that they're doing something incorrectly. Where if you take a little bit of something from everyone and that works for you, and that's what guides your spiritual journey, then that's perfectly okay. I think sometimes there's so many rigid boxes or rigid lines that we have to like stay between, that when you fall out of that by the wayside, you feel like you are all over the place, or that you don't have purpose. Where if you just take a little bit of everything and follow that path that's meant for you, that is purpose.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. Yeah.
I was just thinking that now, it's just crazy. People get so stuck up on a couple things, and it completely takes you off trail. I just said off the trail instead of off the trail. So
it exacerbates guilt and shame and all these things, which then really mess with our lives, you know. And I've seen it in my clients so much. And so that's now what I do, is connect people to their heart, to their source. And in that heart and source is all of that expanse of the universe, of God. And you basically know what you need to do from there. So yeah, that's how I think I knew, because I didn't really have mentors or classes or guides, you know, along the way. Yes, there were people that came in, and I luckily, you know, I don't know if it was luck or guided, or I was guided to them, but they were amazing. Like most of my, what I would call mentor friends, were older, experienced psychiatrists, psychologists, and they just happened to be in that sphere. I mean, I think that's the serendipity of life, and how, you know, when we're concentrated on one thing, and I was really concentrated on healing myself all the time, and getting better and making my life more of a success. So that's where my focus was. I met these people just, you know, not by chance, but truly we were guided to be together.
Synchronicities. I want to actually touch more on your own personal healing journey, because from reading your book, I feel like you had a lot more of a challenging upbringing than most people do. Like I can say that I'm blessed from the upbringing that I have. I've had none, but very minimal types of healing that I've had to do in terms of my upbringing. So I'm just interested to know, like, your healing journey, like how long it took you to get to the stage where you felt like you were healed from all the things you had been through in your past, what processes you took to heal, if there were any certain types of modalities that you turned to in terms of doing this healing. I think it would just be interesting to hear that from you.
Yeah, so a lot of visioning. I am, I guess, visual, but also emotive. So I experience things through feelings, through emotions. So I focused on that a lot, and I guess I sought out different friends and the types of people that you were interested in the same sort of thing. And we talked a lot about it, and I never, I haven't been a closed person. I've been an open person most of my life, even though one would expect me to close down, shut off men, for example, or, because I had a lot of experiences with men that were not so great, or shut off the idea of fathers. But I haven't. And I think remaining open was my biggest strength, my greatest strength. And it took a lot of courage for sure. Where does that courage come from? Everyone always asks me that. And, I honestly believe I was blessed with that because I needed it. And I think we all, it's like that saying that everybody, you're only given what you can handle. And so I think I was also given tools to handle this. And what are those tools? I mean, those tools are like literally reflection, being able to reflect, accept, acknowledge, and let go of things. And I think forgiveness was a big one. I train my mentees in this, and I have a camp that I run for underprivileged kids in Botswana, called Teen Spirit, and I bring in forgiveness a lot into this. And I feel like they tell me, they give me feedback that that's like one of the biggest things that helps them through. Because even if we've had no trauma, there's lots of things we don't forgive, and holding on to that kind of blocks our light. It blocks us moving forward. So a lot of forgiveness work. And I've had to do it a lot and in many different ways. So I've now figured out some of the ways that work for me. It's really looking at it, acknowledging it for what it is, and making the choice to let it go. And then doing that through ritual, doing it in a ritual, whatever works for you. But, I have certain ones that I teach and show people. So those aspects, and compassion, having compassion, self-compassion, self-love. Understanding that you're not the only, you are responsible for your experience, but you're not the only reason for it. It's not your fault, if you will. Yeah.
I love that. Would you mind telling us a little bit about the forgiveness rituals that you teach? Just because I agree, forgiveness is something that is so huge and so pivotal in people's success in healing and overcoming things. Because at the end of the day, when you hold on to things and won't forgive situations, at the end of the day, the only person you're really hurting is yourself. So if you could share with our listeners like an easy little technique or tool or ritual that they could follow in order to forgive stuff that they are holding on to that is no longer serving them, that would be incredible.
Well, they may have heard of the Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. So I've taken that into group work, and you could do this with, an empty chair as well in front of you if you don't have a friend to do it with, or somebody, or you're not in a group of people that would do this work. But and just pretend, that chair is the person you're talking to. So what I've done is flip that whole thing around, so that, because I've noticed that if we are not full ourselves, we don't have gas in the tank, we we can't give anything, we can't drive forward. So we need to give to ourselves first. And so I found a way to do that by having the other person play the role of the perpetrator in your life, the one that you're not forgiving. So you could be not forgiving government. So it could be as big as that, or it could be you can't forgive your father or mother for something they did, or your brother or sister. So that other person is that. And that person says the words to you. I'm sorry for having caused you such trauma in your life. Please forgive me. I didn't know what I was doing. I was not conscious. I was not at a good level in my life. Thank you for, being there. Thank you for having the courage to go through this. And I love you. I love you for who you are, the most beautiful person. And this gives me hope. And so you get filled with that. So then it turns around the other way. And you forgive in your own way. It's very emotional. When it's done in a group, it's extremely emotional, and everyone really feels it. It's like the other person takes on that energy and that spirit of that other one. And I've had really amazing situations with the teens where one girl gave me feedback that she had a father who was absent from her life, and she did this exercise and she didn't get it, and she was really angry, and everybody was just crying and all happy, but she was just angry, furious. And eventually I took her in my arms and I said, I forgive you your unforgiveness. I forgive you your unforgiveness. And then she worked with this over the camp, and eventually she went home and carried on. I said, sometimes you have to forgive every day, sometimes every hour. It's not just something that happens overnight for some people. Some people it does, right? Immediately they're able to let go and it's fine. But sometimes you may need to do this over and over. So another way you can do it is just have an eraser on your pencil and tap the name of the person and say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And I use an eraser because it's meaning that I'm erasing this now. So I just tap on the name and do that over and over. At first, it may seem just mundane and you're not really getting there, but eventually it will. As you carry on, you'll find reasons why you're forgiving them. And there will be reasons of compassion. So you really need compassion with yourself and with others to go into forgiveness. Anyway, this young lady, eventually, 3 months later, we all got together as a group, and we were sharing our experiences, and she said, hey, guess what? My father called after 18 years of not, and I happened to be home. She's a triplet. So she had two sisters, but they were at school, and her mom and her were home. The mother, and she picked up the phone, and this guy asked for her mother, and it was her father, but she didn't know. And then the mother said, he wants to talk to you. And he asked for forgiveness there, but she'd already done the work. So she was able, because she said, I would have spat at him and swore at him, and I would have sworn at him, and that would be it. I had to put the phone down, and he probably wouldn't have called again. But now he was trying to make up for things, and he now paid for the college education for all three girls, and he's in their life now. And it's all because she did this work, and it opened up a space for him to come in, energetically, I believe.
I think it's so important, like you're saying, doing that forgiveness work allowed for that space for her father to obviously come back, and they could move on from that. But also in saying that, for the people that do need to do that forgiveness work, you guys, it's also important to realize that whether you want that person back in your life or not, you need that space for yourself to move forward. So you need to do that forgiveness work in order for you to be able to move forward, whether or not you want that person back in your life. It's so important for you to be able to be like, I completely forgive somebody. And it may seem difficult at first. It's really difficult to be able to forgive someone. Maybe the worst thing that's ever happened in the world to you, or it may be something small somebody did, but everyone has a different scale. And like you say, forgiveness can take days, weeks, months. It doesn't have to happen overnight. You may be someone who just holds on to that non-forgiveness a little bit, but you will reach a point where the grass is greener, like Roxanne I always say, on the other side, and you will forgive and forget. Also, to give you another little cliche, you allow yourself that space to move forward. So I love that you've made forgiveness a theme in this. It's really important.
Yes, and absolutely. And what you're saying is so true. You don't need to have that person back in your life or that situation back in your life. You can choose with your own boundaries to have distance from it. That's nothing to do with the forgiveness part. The forgiveness is just for yourself, as you say, and giving yourself permission to move on.
Yeah. I love how you mentioned in this whole story that because she had done the forgiveness work, and I want to just term you as this as like self-improvement work, because it's not only just forgiveness, but because she had done the work, she handled the situation so much better when she was put in the situation where her father now had contacted her. So I think it's so important as well for everyone to realize that like self-improvement work is so important for yourself, but not only for yourself, because it actually just helps you in future situations to manage yourself better, to manage the situations better, so that you come out on the other side feeling like you made the decisions that were best for everyone in the situation, not just like reacting with anger or disappointment or whatever feelings may like bubble up in the moment. So I love that you explained that part in the story, because I think it's so true how doing the work can really improve your life in the future.
Absolutely. Yes. As it opens doors to new things, new avenues that you never would have considered before.
I actually wanted to ask you about, in your book, you were speaking about, I mean, I know you said earlier that you went through periods of abuse or whatever with different people in your life. And I want to know from you if you have any advice for any of our listeners, if anyone else has gone through a similar sort of situation, I mean, received abuse in any type of way from anyone in their life, what would be your advice from your point of view, no right or wrong, to start to move forward from that and to start that forgiveness process? Because I know for a lot of people that forgiving somebody that's abused you is also sometimes a lot harder than forgiving somebody for something else that they might have done.
Yeah, it is. For me, it's about acknowledging the success that you have, your successes, your small achievements and successes, and the bigger ones too. And seeing yourself as worthy of more, of better. And that's difficult for a lot of us in those situations. When we're in it, we feel like nothing. We feel like we're nobody. We have no meaning. There's nothing for us. We are downtrodden and pushed down, and we're not worthy of better. So it's really to focus on yourself, to empower yourself to feel that you are worthy, however that might show up. Even if it's just affirmations every day that I am worthy. I am worthy of what I say I am. And then it's about integrity and sticking to your word about that. So if you're in a situation where you're being abused and it's continuously happening, and you need to ask yourself, well, what would be different if I stopped allowing this? How could I stop this? And there's a point where you can empower yourself to create those boundaries. And just by your word alone, just saying it to yourself that I will not accept XYZ, whatever it is, and I will not accept this for my life anymore. And this is, you make a pact with yourself, this is what I'm going to do from here on. And then once you take those empowerment steps, it's easier for you to then look at the other person from the other side and see where they might be coming from. And maybe they've been abused in their life. Maybe, it's not to get them off of what they've done to you. Certainly not. You take action against that if you can, in practical ways, calling the police or doing whatever you need to do to take practical action. But internal action is really about empowering yourself to know that you're worthy of better, and you don't have to accept this. in your life. And then it's beginning to forgive that person through those processes that when you're empowering yourself, that it starts to happen naturally. For some, you may actually need to focus on it and keep that in mind the whole way through.
I love that you talk about that. It's so important for people to be able to, I know it's difficult, and I'm not saying to move on, but to allow yourself, as we were speaking about earlier, to allow yourself the opportunity to move forward. And at the end of the day, no matter what's happened to you or what's currently happening or what will happen in your life, there is a way forward. And at the end of the day, you are at the source of your own healing. You have to allow yourself the space to be able to heal and to be able to move forward. Otherwise, that person or that situation indefinitely takes control of your life.
Absolutely.
And yeah, you have to be able to move forward from that. And I know it's easier said than done, but like we were speaking about, you have to allow yourself that space to do the work before you even begin.
Mm, mm.
And I think also what you said about understanding the situation from the other person's perspective, because like we always say, there's three sides to a story: your side, their side, and the truth. But I think every situation, just recognizing that, yes, what this person is doing to me isn't okay, but I must try to understand now, maybe this person's had a shitty upbringing and maybe they've been exposed to things. Maybe they didn't have parents who instilled good morals and values in them. Like, it's not necessarily that they're doing it out of spite. It's just maybe that they don't know any better. And I think that also can help with the forgiveness aspect of things, because you're understanding that it's not because you're a shitty person, that's why they're doing it to you. It's actually a reflection that they, not necessarily a shitty person, but they've gone through their own crap to have caused them to do this to other people.
Yes, 100%, 100%.
I love this. I think it's been.
I also wanted to speak to you. It's such a random question, but I obviously don't know as much as Rox does, like we said to you guys all earlier. But in your book, you have your chapters that are, you said different spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
What did you call them?
Soul songs.
Soul songs.
Yes.
So each chapter is its own soul song. And what made you think about doing that when you were writing the book? Was it something that you thought about before you wrote the book, or did you decide as you were going on that that's how you wanted to do the chapters?
It was right in the beginning. In fact, I was nearly going to call the book Song of My Soul, and then I saw there were too many Song of My Souls around. And I thought, no, it's too cliche. So, but I wanted to bring the soul song into it because, you know, having experienced the crossing over and having experienced music being part of creation, I wanted to bring that in. So each chapter is setting a mood. It's setting a mood for how you're going to feel. So, for example, let me see if I can find one in the book. Let's see. This is how the book is laid out.
It's beautiful.
So scene 9, this is chapter 9, basically. Scene, and I call it a scene because, you know, it's like a drama. Soul song, and then it's heraldic, adventuresome, and strong. And then and it's called 7 years, nature's dancer. So I was 7 years old. So it gives the context for what you're going to read. And then underneath, I have a quote, usually from some enlightened person who I, you know, see as enlightened, or even my guides. I've put some of their sayings in there with their names. But this one is Khalil Gibran. Beauty is eternity gazing at itself in a mirror, but you are eternity and you are the mirror. So
that's beautiful.
Then I was able to go into the chapters myself after titling them and actually write to match what is there in the
that's amazing. It's literally your whole entire experience through life has shaped where you are today and what you now do. And like you were saying about your book, I don't want to necessarily say your book, it's your life story. Your life story does a full circle. I think it's once again doing a full circle, and you're living in like these circles of completion where
Yeah.
to learn what you went through in order for you to be able to help someone else. And I think that can also give a lot of people hope in knowing that what you're going through may seem like the end of the world, but in the long run, you may actually be able to help somebody else with one of the experiences that you've gone through.
Yes, that was really the reason for writing the story. Other than that, it was, I wanted to leave a legacy for my kids. I have two beautiful young adults, and my son is Kaedi and my daughter is Tahlia, and they're going out in the world now. And yeah, I really wanted to leave the story of my life there for them and their children one day as well. But the real, I think this story is for so many people. My publisher was saying to me, well, who is this for? We got to market to a certain genre of people and demographic. And I think it's women and children, or women and women, and spiritual people. But I've found, politicians reading it, giving me feedback that, wow, they looked at their life and they said, wow, this is something. So it's basically for everyone. I can't say that it's I'm not going to limit myself with this.
So you all now need to read a copy of the book along with me. We'll be joining everyone. I think we should all get a copy and read the book. Honestly, it was so good to speak to you about it.
That's what it looks like.
It's beautiful. And not often do you get to speak to the author of the book. So I think that's been a really big privilege. I can't even speak. Privilege for Roxana today to be able to speak of the author of the book. And she's read the book. So to be able to ask questions, like Rox had that question. I still remember when she started reading it and she said that she had that question. She was like, when we get to speak to her, I just want to ask her, like, how does she remember? I still remember Rox and I were going to a boxing class and this is what she told me. And I was like, you're already starting with the question. So being able to speak to you in person today, in inverted commas, has been really amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I have to tell you how fun it was reading a book where I was like, I'm actually going to get to meet the author and ask her a question. That never happens. So this has been absolutely incredible. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And then before we end off, we always ask our guests 3 rapid fire questions. So we're going to shoot 3 questions at you. Just answer first thing that comes up into your head. No pressure, no right or wrong. The first question is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Love yourself.
Oh, love that. Yes. And then on the other side, what is the worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Hey, that's a good one. I'm stumped. What is the worst? It's more along the lines of you can't do it, and that's, you're now in the adult world, if you will, and that gives such a feeling of just, I can't make it. I'll never make it. It's not going to work. I shouldn't do what my dream is,
Yeah,
that's a good question. I hadn't reflected on it. I have to reflect on that a little more.
Awesome. And then the last one is, if you could enforce any rule or way of being in the world, what would it be?
Yeah, acts of compassion, acts of love and compassion. I'm so touched when I see that happening, whether it's between a person and an animal, whether it's between a person and another person, whether it's just, random gifts to people. It just touches me when I read those stories or I see that happening in live in front of me. I actually will get tears in my eyes if I see that. It's just so special.
And I think if everyone treated everyone with compassion, the world would be a completely different place.
Completely, yes.
Amazing.
Why can't we get there?
That's the dream. And if our followers or listeners want to contact you or find you, what would be the easiest ways for them to do so?
Okay, so my email is Thea, Thea, at Thea Khama, So it's TheaKhama.com. That's my email. You can contact me there, or I'm also available on most social media platforms like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all is Thea Khama, as my name. And also the book is available on Amazon. It's on Kindle books. It's also Kindle Unlimited. So you can read it for free if you're a Kindle Unlimited person online. Otherwise, in bookshops, it's available in Johannesburg at the moment. I haven't got yet into the rest of South Africa, but I'm trying to get there, Durban and Cape Town. And it's available at Exclusive Books in Killarney, in Bedfordview, Mall of Africa, and Rosebank. And it's also going to be available soon at Hyde Park, Exclusive Books. Yeah.
Wonderful. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time and for agreeing to chat to us on our podcast. It's been incredible to dive a little bit deeper into your story and what you do now and your whole journey to getting here. So thank you so much for sharing all of that with us.
I've really enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure. And I'm also just loving you guys, your questions and what you've come up with, because they're so different from most of the podcasts that I do. And I love your understanding and your element of knowing. I think you guys are amazing young individuals. And I really, think you're doing a great movement here, and just keep it up.
Thank you. That's so sweet. Thank you.
Incredible.
Thank you so much for being with us. It was so nice to chat to you, and we will see you guys all next week.